Hi.
My name is Deb Patel. I'm the current Mid-Atlantic State Governor.
Hi, my name is Jean Kim, and I'm the current ORV governor.
Okay. And the goal of this webinar is not only to provide you all with information about JSA Cabinet, but it's about making Cabinet accessible to each and every single JSAer. And I promise that at the end of this presentation, we will get to your questions and answer any questions you may have about Cabinet.
Oh, okay, so we're going to start off before delving into this discussion about cabinet with JSA's mission. So JSA's mission is to strengthen American democracy by educating and preparing high school students for a lifelong involvement and responsible leadership in a democratic society. So going off of JSA's mission, we have our JSA's values: leadership, empowerment, accountability, diversity, and inclusion. So those are all values that you can definitely learn and experience through cabinet. Cabinet is obviously a leadership role, as those who are on cabinet are the leaders of the state. Empowerment, I think because you become a leader of your state and cabinet, you're empowered to carry out your responsibilities and to just be a good example of JSA's missions and values. Accountability is definitely important in serving on cabinet, as you are going to be expected to carry out your work to the best of your ability on time, and you're going to be held accountable since you're not the only person on cabinet, but there are other people around you who you're working with. And obviously, as an organization, we definitely value diversity and inclusion. Anybody can apply to cabinet, anyone can be on cabinet, and it's really important for us to make sure that the opportunity to serve is available for everybody and anybody. So what exactly is JSA Cabinet? It comprises of elected officials and then the cabinet members. It kind of mirrors a governmental structure, so you usually have the governor, the lieutenant governor, elected officials at the top. You have the directors, and like the next tier, and then you have all the specialists that work under the directors, specialists or agents. They carry out the responsibilities necessary for a state to function. The cabinet is the main working body of your state. So anything that the state does, from like conventions, activism initiatives, anything in between, is going to be run by your cabinet. And a cabinet term is 1 year only. So next, if you already in cabinet or you like plan to be on cabinet, you want to be on next year as well, you have to apply again.
Now we'll cover the JSA cabinet structure. The important thing to note is that the cabinet structure varies from state to state. So it's essential that after this webinar, you follow up with your governor for more specific information regarding cabinet in your state. The commonalities, however, between all state cabinets are the departments that are encompassed within the cabinet in some form. One of the most important departments this year is chapter relations and expansion, because in order to prevent a stagnation, we must continue to grow and also retain the chapters we currently have established. This department is responsible for communicating with chapters to help resolve issues as far as attendance, apathy, administrative issues, and much more, as well as relaying relevant information regarding events and initiatives of the state. Another fundamental department is the debate department. Members of this department are responsible for devising new debate structures and writing the debates that are used at conventions. Next comes the activism department, which is tasked with facilitating activism initiatives internally within the state and externally using our leadership to make a positive impact within the community. The fundraising department is responsible for devising and executing initiatives to raise funds to go towards a scholarship fund, as well as the cost of hosting a convention. The technology and graphics department is responsible for updating the website regularly and creating the graphics to be used at conventions. The convention organization department is integral in scheduling the convention activities, writing the agenda, hosting nighttime activities, and much more pertinent to hosting a convention. The final fundamental department within Cabinet is the Communication and Public Relations Department, which is responsible for promoting JSA both internally and externally. One example of their tasks is communicating with local media outlets to update them on what our organization is achieving. Now, this is actually one of my favorite portions of the webinar, cabinet expectations. What are
Oh,
cabinet members expected to do?
hey, Deb, before we go on to the expectations, let's take a poll to see what position or department folks might be most interested in applying to.
Okay, perfect.
So we're going to launch a poll through GoToWebinar. So if you are logged onto the computer portion, you should have it should have popped up on your screen. So what position or department most interests you as the attendees of this webinar? And I'm sorry if technology and graphics was most interesting to you, but it only limited me to 5 options. So you can, if that one doesn't show up, then you don't have to answer this poll. And we're going to close the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we can share the results. So looks like there's a lot of interest in debate and conventions. That's not surprising since that's what a lot of students are exposed to and the types of participation they have in JSA. And then we're pretty even between the other departments. So thanks for taking the poll. And now we can move back over to Deb.
Okay, perfect. So like I was saying, cabinet expectations, this is one of my favorite portions of the webinar because it gives me an opportunity to tell you what's expected of cabinet members. Cabinet members are expected to attend mandatory cabinet retreats for each of your individual states. Cabinet members are also expected to have passion, dedication, and commitment to JSA to carry out the responsibilities to help our state. This also includes active engagement during conventions. The common issue we've seen so far with cabinet members is that very many of them sit at fundraising blocks and the tables and do nothing besides that during conventions. It's important that you guys get involved with debates and get involved with talking to other JSAers because you serve as the role models, the leaders of our organization. With that being said, cabinet members are also expected to uphold responsible behaviors that reflect all of JSA's values. Now we'll move on to the benefits of serving on cabinet. Serving on cabinet provides numerous benefits to you all as individuals, as well as the organization as a whole. The number one benefit I've experienced from serving on cabinet is a complete honing of my organizational and leadership skills. I came into the organization like many of the JSAers I've seen, shy and unsure of my place among such confident, refined leaders. Cabinet provides an inviting environment in which I overcame my fear of public speaking and developed my strategic mindset of optimization, whether for the state or any other instance in my personal life. Very few students have the opportunity of partaking in leading an organization, much less the largest student-run organization in all of the US. Serving on cabinet provides an unparalleled opportunity to do so. With that being said, it also provides useful insight as to what it takes to run an organization. It showcases the back-end work and preparation that goes into running the conventions that we all love so much. As previously mentioned, JSA is a student-run organization, and it's in need of a strong student leadership to ensure its sustainability, efficiency, and effectiveness. You all may just be that leadership. Lastly, Cabinet is reflective of the organization as a whole and provides an opportunity to expand your social network and collaborate with like-minded individuals across the state.
So now that you guys have heard about all the expectations of Cabinet, what is Cabinet, and hopefully very excited about Cabinet, let's talk about a bit about the Cabinet application process. So the Cabinet applications are released in early June and they're all up currently. They're also, you can find them probably on your state social media, but also at jsa.org/cabinet, which we will show you guys at the end of this webinar. You should review the Cabinet application to determine Cabinet roles you're interested in. As we saw before, a lot of people are interested in debate convention area, but reading through the responsibilities of each of the individual departments for your state is probably very beneficial. You can kind of figure out what you might want to do. Fill out the general Cabinet application along with special application for selective roles. So there's a general application form, but then there's also specified questions for each of the possible departments or like roles that you'd like to do. And also submit completed application to contact information provided in the Cabinet application. And that submission process is probably different for each state. So make sure to read your application carefully and make sure you submit your application correctly and on time.
Yeah, Jane, that's great information about the Cabinet application process. I'm wondering if you and Deb can give some insights on what makes a standout cabinet application. So if there are 40 spots available on cabinet and 100 applications, what's going to make mine stand out to those that are reviewing it?
Yeah,
That's
Deb, go
actually
ahead.
a great. One of the things that I look for in some of the applications I see, there's so many people out there that want a spot on cabinet, but there's a number of different things I look for that set people apart. The number one thing I look for is creativity. It's what can you do with minimal information about the back end and the intricacies of the organization, and what are the creative initiatives that you can come up with. Something that really stands out to me is when someone comes up with a solution that's clearly outside of the box. Because if we keep doing things the same way, we aren't going to progress as an organization. And that's exactly the type of mindset I look for when I select cabinet members for these positions.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with Deb on that. I think personally, I also really look for someone who's genuine and dedicated to the mission. I know like coming in like cabinet myself, like when I was like young and inexperienced, I didn't know the intricacies and such, but I did have a like genuine desire to learn more and a genuine desire to serve this organization. So I think for cabinet applications, I definitely look for the like fire and JSAers who like really, really want to be a part of something bigger.
I think on top of that, it's also going back to the point that we brought up, looking at the acronym LEAD, leadership, empowerment, accountability, diversity, and inclusion. Everyone in cabinet needs to be reflective of those values and be able to abide by them. As far as leadership goes, is JSA cabinet members going out of their way to talk to individuals and encourage others because they are leaders? Are they able to empower them? On top of that, are they able to abide by a timeline? Being on cabinet, there's a number of different tasks you have to complete, and there's many people that depend on you. So you have to be able to complete things in a timely manner. And I think those are the different things that all elected officials across the nation look for when selecting their cabinets.
Definitely. Cool.
Great, thanks so much.
Okay, so now if you need more information about your cabinet application process or anything like that, definitely review your cabinet application for your specific state, as it probably contains a great deal of information about your specific cabinet structure and description of the specific roles that you could possibly apply for. Also, it's probably important to be able to contact your elected officials for your state and get more information about your state's cabinet. So if you can't find information in the application itself, definitely reaching out to your elected officials and making sure you get answers to your questions is a good idea. Also, as we said before, if you go to jsa.org/cabinet, you're taken to this page and you can learn a little bit more about like what cabinet is. There's an FAQ. You can apply for your state cabinets here, and you can also apply for the national cabinet.
And can you two spend some time talking about what the difference is between state and national cabinet?
Yeah, so I can do that if you want.
Okay.
Yeah, so national cabinet is there aren't specialists on national cabinet. It's all directors, and they work hand in hand with the Council of Governors or COG in order to get national initiatives spread out and have like national unity in specific areas that we as a Council of Governors have decided to focus on. And state cabinet is a lot more state specific and focusing more on the internal workings and logistics of a state.
Yep.
Great. And before
One
we,
more thing.
oh, go ahead,
Yeah.
Deb. You go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. One thing that I did want to discuss is that I know there was a good amount of us that were able to attend this webinar today, but there's many more people that may have wanted to learn about cabinet. If you know any of these individuals, your JSA peers, please be sure to share this information with them, as well as some of our contact information so that they can reach out to us if they have any questions and want to learn more.
Great. So there definitely are some questions from the attendees, so we're going to get to those next. Before we do that, I'd like to take just two more quick polls. So one is about letting us know as an organization how you heard about this webinar. So it's coming up now. So this is a format that we are looking to utilize more in the upcoming school year. I don't know if you heard or were part of two of the national webinars that we did last year, one around the State of the Union address and one about through kind of a national thought talk about the Never Again movement. So it's a great way, we think, and a great platform to engage JSAers from all across the country. So we want to know, kind of learn how we can best promote our webinars and get the word out about them. So would appreciate your input on that. So our options are an email directly from JSA. So it came from the organization as an email. You saw it on social media. You heard about it directly from somebody, or you got an email or were somehow contacted by your governor or a JSA leader, or one that I didn't cover. Great, thanks for that. If anybody's interested, it looks like for the most part it was through email from JSA, so that's great that those are being viewed. And then just in general, where do you get information about JSA? And it's kind of the same categories, but kind of not just about this webinar specifically, but where do you usually find information about what's going on in JSA, what's coming up in JSA? If you have questions about JSA, where do you usually go for those, that kind of information? Again, social media, email, website, word of mouth, or other. And okay, great. I'll give it a few more seconds. Looks like some people are still answering or changing their minds, which is fine. But again, this helps us kind of best communicate with our members. So thanks for letting us know. And again, looks like most of you get information about JSA through email, which is great. And so I'm going to review some of the questions that are in the questions box. So Elizabeth said, if one is accepted into cabinet, what should they generally expect? So I've filled out my application, I've gotten a position. Dev and Jean, maybe you could, then what happens?
Yeah, Jean, do you want to take that one?
Yeah. So I think generally what you can expect is to have like a very stable community. I think for my state at least, and for maybe I don't know about your state, Dev, we give a preliminary like call to all those who are accepted on cabinet, so you have a clear understanding of what to expect. But I think generally, if you look at the cabinet applications themselves, that you're going to be able to see what is expected of you on cabinet based on what that role says.
Yeah, and I think adding on to that, if you are accepted to cabinet, then we also hold a cabinet retreat where we discuss a lot of the things in the roles for the next year. So it's kind of where we map out what the past year looked like and how we're going to be able to build upon that for the next year. So some of the things that we do is have a planning session at the beginning of cabinet retreat in which we discuss the past year and then just new things we want to do throughout the year. And then we also break down into specific cabinets, and then we also discuss what new things are we trying this year regarding your specific department.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up the cabinet retreat, Deb. So that's just a general term that we use in JSA. In some states, we call it a cabinet retreat. In some states, we call it a cab con, so kind of like a cabinet convention. So it's usually a day or a weekend, generally in August, where all the newly appointed cabinet officials meet, again, and kind of do the things that Deb just talked about: goal setting, planning for the next year, working in departments, doing some leadership exercises. So it's kind of a whole day or weekend around those types of activities. A couple of you have asked about specific dates, and since there's 10 different cabinet retreats or CabCons, it's best to check with either your program director or your JSA governor on the dates and locations for your specific JSA state. But it's good to get that on your calendar now, because we do want all of our cabinet members to participate in that event. So great question and answer. Let's see. And what's the time commitment for cabinet? And is there a major difference between regional and state cabinets or positions? Can you kind of give some folks a general idea about the time commitment?
Yeah, I can take that. So the difference between regional and state conferences, it really varies from state to state because in some states, regions are huge. In some states, regions are very small. But the basic work that needs to be done on regional and state cabinets both is planning for some conventions and some regional conferences as well. So there's always a convention department regarding both of those cabinets. I would say at the state level, it's a little bit more work because we have to plan for more people. Like I know in the Mid-Atlantic state, we have around 600 people that may come to a one-day conference, but we have 700 plus that come to conventions, state conventions. So there is a little bit of a difference as far as work goes, but I would say roughly it's the same time commitment for all cabinets. The way that I kind of planned out my time was put in a few hours every week for JSA Cabinet, and I was working in the expansion department before I was governor. So I'd say I put in around 4 to 5 hours a week. And I think that kind of varies from department to department, but that's a rough estimate of what kind of time commitment to expect.
Yeah, I think that generally just like no matter what time you can commit, just making sure that you commit like certain hours. If you say you're going to commit to some like amount of time, make sure you carry through with that. I think is important because people are going to be relying on you and they're going to be wanting to have you accountable for the work you said that you do.
And how do cabinets usually function, or how do you communicate with your cabinet and your elected officials? Are there conference calls, or how does that communication usually work amongst cabinet members and with the elected official that oversees that department?
Yeah, I can take that. I think for the ORV, we have a overall cabinet group chat, and most of the departments have their own group chats. So that's a very like fast way of communication. So that's one of the main things that we do a lot. And I think for us, we have our elected officials and all of our directors have a bi-weekly call. So everyone is on this call that helps like plan out the bigger things and bigger picture that like every single person in cabinet doesn't need to exactly hear, but we do generally try to have transparency with those. So anyone has accessibility to like read the call notes for those, but not everyone is on the calls. So generally, like depends kind of on what position you are, like how you're communicated to, and like what type of things that you need to do. But I think generally, like cabinet is kind of like very like a family and very much like a community. So oftentimes you do have like a group chat where like we send like memes or like jokes and stuff like that. So it is it can be very like it's not like all like chain emails or anything.
Dev, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, with that being said, a group chat is great, but I also do like to have direct communication between the elected official and a specific department. So that can definitely be established through contacting via text or even PMs on Facebook. But I think what Gene said is a great point. We do have group chats, and that's where a lot of the major overarching cabinet discussion is done. But if you have questions regarding your specific department, it's always best to contact the elected official in charge.
Great, and this is a great question from Paula. What is JSA's ultimate goal slash focus for next year? And as a council,
That's a great point.
Two of the governors and the council, you should know that.
Yeah, the goal going into the next year is definitely building upon what our CEO actually said, Ken White. He said that JSA has been the best kept secret because we've been around for 85 plus years, and we definitely want to share the beautiful experience with everyone else. Right now, we have 10,000 plus members, but we can easily build upon that if we dedicate some time every year. And I think all of our initiatives are focused on just spreading the JSA message to as many people as possible. Because right now we're spreading to a group that's, I'd say, roughly small, but we can definitely build upon that. And I think all of the council of governors agree that it's an experience that we want to share with everyone.
Yeah, I think definitely also building upon that is like a continued focus on like engagement within our current membership. So not just like expanding and getting more members, but making sure that those who are involved or still are part of JSA are getting the full experience of JSA, or being able to learn about our values and be able to follow and carry out our mission.
Great, thank you both so much. And you can see if those of you, the attendees, if you're looking at the cabinet applications, the positions that we want and the positions that we're looking for definitely reflect those goals in the year that we have ahead of us. So we have a question, and I think this is a great one. So it's going to be helpful if you look at specific applications, but maybe you guys can talk about how do I apply for a specific position or a department in general? And then what happens if I don't get the one position I want? Can I get a second one, or can I, get something different than what my first choice was? How does that work?
I can take that. So the way that the Mid-Atlantic State does it is that in our cabinet application, we have a ranked choice. So you rank the positions that you would want. You only apply for the top level position, but if you don't get that position, we'll consider you for one of the other three that you want. And with that being said, The thing on cabinet is that you do apply for a specific position, and depending on the position, I think you can also apply for the department. The way that we do it for expansion and fundraising is that we have fundraising department directors as well as agents. You don't apply for an agent position or a director position. You just kind of get placed wherever we think, as elected officials, you would fit in best.
For ORV, it's slightly different. You do apply, we have like a rank choice, and you fill out the questions for those rankings. And if we also have like a thing that like if you put like three choices and we don't select you for any three choices, there is like an option that we could select you for something that we do think you'd fit well in, to just give everyone the opportunity in case they aren't selected for the position that they want. On top of that, we do have it so that you you can choose between director or a specialist or agent positions, but directors only have to apply for directors, and then we consider them for specialists. So you don't apply to be a director. If you apply to be a specialist, we're only going to consider you for that position. It
Yeah, and
depends
again, I
on.
think it's helpful, yeah, to read the individual state applications for more information on that. Again, I think the goal is to set everyone up to be successful in their role. So it's a lot of figuring out who best fits those skill sets and that time commitment, and who's going to be the best fit. But we want cabinet members that are engaged, that like what they do, that feel challenged and feel part of something and have real responsibility. So that's always the goal with cabinet. So can folks apply to their state cabinet and national cabinet? And can you guys talk a little bit more about national cabinet? Maybe just run down maybe the positions and how that's overseen.
Dev, do you want to take that?
I can take the first part of
Or
it.
Jean,
So yes, you
maybe
can
just
apply
bring up
to.
Jean, maybe just bring up the application while Dev talks about the first part.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So you can apply to both the state and national cabinet, and we do highly encourage that after this webinar, you take a good look at both applications and just see if anything interests you. So a few of the different positions that we came up with together for national cabinet is the National Chief of Staff, who works directly with the chair of the Council of Governors to oversee the rest of national cabinet. There's also going to be a National Director of Debate, a National Director of Media Production, National Director of Fight Apathy, National Director of Overseas Outreach, National Director of Fundraising, National Director of Summer School Promotion, National Director of Activism, and National Director of Public Relations. So that just gives you a good idea of what positions we have on national cabinet. And Jean, if you want to cover any specific position maybe in a little bit of greater detail.
Yeah, so each of the positions is not only going to work with the chair, our overall chair, who's Max Sang, the Midwest governor, but also be paired up with a specific governor, or a specific like multiple governors. So for example, I am in charge of overseeing the National Director of Fight Apathy. So that person would work not only in coordination with Max, but also in coordination with me, and making sure that they're accountable for the large role that they have. So each of the national directors not only have the overall chair, but also like a governor who's going to be by their side.
And I think the one point to talk about with national cabinet is that national cabinet members devise the initiatives that we carry throughout the nation, as far as all states go. So let's say National Director of Public Relations comes up with an initiative to help publicize JSA. That initiative would be carried out throughout all states, and that's the same with any of the other positions.
So you can apply to be on national cabinet. You can fill out an application to be on national cabinet and your state or regional cabinets. You cannot serve on both. So you cannot be the national director of debate and the Mid-Atlantic director of debate, for example. It's just too much of a time commitment to be able to serve both in full capability. So you can apply to be on both, but you can only be appointed to one or the other. So I hope that answers the question about national cabinet. Is there a position that are best suited for freshmen or people that are kind of just getting started in the organization?
Jean, you want to take that?
Yeah, I think it kind of depends on who you are as like a freshman, or like someone who's new to the organization. It's like what drew you to JSA, I think, is definitely something you should consider. So like for me, I was drawn to JSA definitely because of its like civic involvement portion. So I like really cared about how we were getting involved in our communities and giving students a voice. So I joined the Department of Activism. I had a friend who really, really liked the debate aspect of JSA, who really liked how we used like very controlled discussions in order to give students the opportunity to speak. And so he joined the debate department. So I think honestly, like any position can be suited for someone who's newer to JSA. It just kind of depends on what drew you to JSA and what you're passionate about.
Oh, great. And if somebody's applying for a spot on national cabinet, is it necessary that they've worked in in that specific department on state cabinet?
It's not necessary, I would say, for that, but we do need to see that they are a good fit for that role. If they have the right initiatives and they have the right mindset, as well as showcasing their ability to abide by a schedule, I think they make a great fit for that position. But they have to meet all of the above criteria. We don't require that specific experiences is necessary, but we do want to have the right initiatives in place in order to ensure that that position is filled with the highest level of success.
Yeah.
And how many applications do we typically get per state for state cabinet? Or I might be able to answer this. So I think generally in the larger states, we get about 100, sometimes a little
Mhm.
more. In some of our mid-sized states, so Ohio, Texas, the Midwest, maybe 60. So it's generally, we get twice as many applications as we have spots on average
Mhm.
in any given year. So that's just a good rule of thumb. And how many apps are received for NatCab? So I think last year we got about 40 applications for total for the 10 or 9 national cabinet positions. So that's a good question. And some people have asked, so you'll see in this national cabinet that there's a lot of overlap between state cabinet positions. So there's a national director of debate and then state directors of debate. There's a national director of fight apathy and a state director of fight apathy. So again, the national cabinet is focused on how can we coordinate content across all of JSA regardless of the state. So again, kind of taking a higher level approach to JSA, how can we, give members opportunities in debate across all of JSA and not just within one specific state? How can we expand JSA's impact and doability on the fight apathy campaign across the country? So what kind of media publications can we put out? What kind of outreach do we need? How do we get people to register? So it's looking at things a little bit more broadly and a little bit more high level than just at the state level. The state level usually just communicates with chapters in that specific state. So hopefully that gives people a better understanding of the national versus state cabinets. So Elena, I hope that answered your question about national director of fight apathy versus state. And I think there was a couple others. Somebody asked, can you two talk about your personal experience with being on cabinet? What it was like for you, what you got out of it, and maybe what one of the challenges were to being on cabinet?
Yeah, so I can start this off, Gene, if that's okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So I came into cabinet in my sophomore year, at the beginning of my sophomore year, and I actually worked as an expansion agent. When I came into cabinet, I was probably one of the most shy individuals that you would ever see. I didn't really like talking to people. I wasn't the individual that went up and started talking for no absolute reason. But that soon began to change because cabinet was just such an inviting experience for me, and everyone wanted to get to know me a little bit better. And I think that's the type of environment that we're trying to keep going for years to come. Serving on cabinet, I got to learn a lot about the organization and how it functions, not only for my department, but for other departments, because we all start talking. Cabinet members, like Gene said before, are like a family, and everything we talk about, we all know. So if someone's working on the debate department, I talk about their debate and they learn about my expansion. So everyone gets a better understanding of the fundamentals of the organization. And I think it helped me with my public speaking. It helped me come out of my shell. And in the end, it helped me grow as a leader. And I think those are the things that you can pull away from serving on cabinet.
I would agree with Deb. I think personally, I joined JSA like kind of randomly my sophomore year, and I joined immediately after my first convention into mid-year cabinet because I just like was really inspired by the students in JSA. I really wanted to be like a student leader, as Deb said. I wanted to get that experience that I could see other people working in. So I joined the Department of Activism, as I said before, because I found my specific passion less in speaking and more in like engaging students. And I think for me, Cabinet has been something of like a kind of like a magical experience because I have a lot of friends on Cabinet now. I've gotten to meet people across the United States kind of because of Cabinet, and oftentimes it's giving me like a the experience of like how to organize things, how to like make Excel spreadsheets, and like even little things like that. You definitely get a very holistic experience on Cabinet, no matter what department you're in.
And I think to add on to that, there's just one more thing. Cabinet isn't about having the necessary skills and everything up front. It's about having that desire to grow as a leader and to grow your connections. And I think if you have that drive, you have so much potential within the organization. And I think that's exactly what I've seen that Cabinet is filled with.
And somebody asked, what if you're the only member on cabinet that's from your chapter? How does that work? Does that make a difference?
I don't think it makes a difference, but I think then like you have a unique responsibility, and I think you have a like unique commitment to your chapter to be able to like spread the information you learn on Cabinet to your other chapter members, and hopefully next year encourage more people in your chapter to get involved in Cabinet.
Great. And we want cabinet members from across all different chapters. We don't want a cabinet that's comprised of one or two powerhouse chapters or the same chapters get positions year in and year out. We want that new talent. We want, people from new chapters or small chapters to bring that experience and gain those skills as well. So if if your chapter doesn't have a long history of having cabinet members, or if they've never had a cabinet member, don't let that deter you. We want you and those other students to apply. Somebody asked, can I add the question, the essay, and all the other responses on a separate document? I'm assuming to the application. And if so, what format should that be in?
What state is this person from? Do we know?
Jared, let me see if you're still on the call, and then I can unmute you. Jared Curry, I'm going to unmute you. Maybe you can specify this a little bit better. Jared, are you there?
Oh, yes.
Jared.
Yes,
Hey,
hello.
can you specify your question a little bit better?
Yeah, so I know that the application it was on the Facebook page, so I downloaded it and I wasn't able to type on it, so I had to turn it into a Cami document, and there just wasn't enough space to type all the answers, so it is okay to type on a separate document, right? And put
Yeah, I
all
would assume that it would be okay to type in a separate document. Just let the elected official know that that's the way you're going to submit it. And I don't think that anyone would have an issue, especially if there isn't enough space to type it into the actual document that was provided.
Yeah, and if you're doing that, I definitely suggest, like, just for the ease of the elected officials and maybe for you to retype the question, if you can, so you can like kind of have it well organized.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks, Jared. That's a good question. I think we just have a couple more. What position is suited towards getting people more involved in JSA? I don't know, Sarah, if you're still on the call, I'm going to come to you because I'm not sure if that means current members or those that aren't part of JSA yet. So Sarah Memon, I'm coming over to you. If you want to unmute yourself, maybe you could ask that one. Unmute. Oh, sorry. Sarah, are you there? Unmute, Sarah. Or Sarah, maybe you could unmute yourself. Maybe not. Okay, well, maybe you two can take a shot. What position is best suited towards getting people more involved in JSA?
I think Deb can definitely take this one.
Yeah. So I think with getting people more involved in the organization, it's definitely one of the strong suits of expansion. Expansion is aimed at spreading JSA's message as far as we can reach, not only to other chapters, but expanding the influence of JSA as well. I would also think strongly that activism is also a great way to get people more involved with an organization. If there's a cause that they truly believe in, this is the #1 way to go out and make an impact in the community. And I think that's what we strive for as a part of Cabinet, is helping people understand and expand their roles within the organization.
Yeah, I think that any part of cabinet, any department has the responsibility and the ability to definitely expand JSA's message and JSA's reach. But I think that like that role is specifically given to the expansion department oftentimes.
Okay. Can a person that is going to be out of the country and not going to school in the US in the upcoming year still serve on cabinet?
It's an interesting
I
question.
would think that in order to serve on a state cabinet, you would have to be a member of that state. And I think as long as you meet that criteria, I wouldn't see why you wouldn't be able to serve on cabinet. But I think I might need a little bit more specification as to what the question is asking, so I can
Oh,
better
I'm sorry.
answer it.
It's about NatCab specifically. I'm sorry, I missed that part.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I think for I think it's a bit harder for state cabinets since state cabinets are a lot of like little things and like being very involved at like the very basic state level. But I think for national cabinet, as long as you are very on top of things communication wise, obviously if you're gonna be out of the country, there's like time zones that you have to be considerate of, stuff like that. So I think as long as you've got really good organizational and communicational skills, like you should be fine.
Yeah, and I think a position like overseas outreach might be a good one. And again, for those of you that haven't looked at that application, we have JSA chapters in the U.S. territories like American Samoa and the U.S. Virgin Islands that we get a grant from the Department of the Interior to run. So we want to maintain that kind of student to student, peer to peer contact. And so a lot of the responsibilities of that overseas an expansion director helps our chapters in our U.S. territories. So some background on that position. And then this is the last one that I have. If there are some others, feel free to keep typing them. But the last one in my question box is, are there specific positions only for one person, or do you share that role?
I think it really varies from state to state. The director positions most of the time, at least on mayoral cabinet for the Mid-Atlantic state, have one person only. But it's really up to the jurisdiction of the governor or elected official to determine how many people get a position. If there's two really good applications and no one can choose between who's a better candidate, then there may end up being two people filling the same role. But again, it's very hard to answer that question because it's different for every state.
Yeah, it definitely varies also on like the number of applications, like who applied, like Dev said. Like usually for director positions, I'm like gonna be choosing one person, but if there are two very qualified candidates who I think can work together, definitely we'd consider having both of them in that position.
And just as a general rule, or historically, we do just have one person serve in each of the national cabinet positions. So that's typically not an area that we have doubled up on or had co-cabinet members on national cabinet. And then what's recommended, we kind of answered this one earlier, but we can come back to it. What's recommended for someone who is now getting into cabinet? So it's maybe, again, a first time applying to cabinet, or somebody new, or a freshman, or somebody who's now just kind of getting into cabinet and what that means.
I think definitely like don't be hesitant because you're new and like obviously since you're on this webinar you are definitely trying to get more information about it. But definitely don't be afraid to ask questions. And I think the main thing you should consider is that even if you don't know a lot about JSA's like history or like the semantics of JSA, you still have a very unique and interesting outside view. So don't be afraid to like put whatever ideas you want. You're like, oh, they haven't done that in the past. Like that generally does not matter. Like definitely just think about like what you have and what you want to bring and the passion that you have for this organization.
Yeah, I think to add on to that, one of the things that I'm encouraging with anyone applying to cabinet in my state is reach out to the elected officials. Give them an opportunity to get to know you. I think they all want to get to know you. It's just that sometimes JSA members are afraid to talk to their elected officials. Don't let that be the case because we all want to get to know you. And I think that's our best way of seeing where you stand and what your capabilities are.
Okay. That's all the questions that we have. So thanks everybody so much for coming. If you have questions, feel free to send them to Dev or Jean, who will follow up with you via email after this, just to thank you for your time. And if you have any state-specific questions, it's probably best to reach out to your governor. All the cabinet applications are at jsa.org/cabinet. So super easy to find, all in one place, every state application and the national application. They're generally due the first part of July. You're going to want to check that just to make sure you've got your calendars marked and that you meet that deadline. It's a little rough to say I'm here and I want to, be involved in JSA leadership, but I didn't submit my application on time. So be cognizant of the deadline. And again, Dev and Jean talked about this earlier, but make an application that makes you stand out, that shows your dedication, your genuineness, you're wanting to get to know more and take on more of a leadership role in the organization, and that shows some creativity and thinking outside the box. I think that's really what will help your application stand out. And Dev and Jean, if you have any parting words before we wrap up, I'll leave it to you.
Yeah, and like I said again, we want to encourage as many people to apply as possible. If you know anyone that wants to get to know more about this, feel free to share our contact information with them and share some of the things that you learned today, because I think it's a great opportunity for everyone, and we really want to see more people get involved with the organization.
Yeah, I think definitely, as Dev say, like, don't be hesitant, don't be afraid, like, don't be like intimidated by the application process. Like, it's such a wonderful experience and such a beneficial experience that even if you're like scared at first or like hesitant, like just go for it, like shoot your shot, because it's definitely going to be worth it.
Okay, thank you everybody so much for being on, and good luck with your cabinet applications. We look forward to reviewing them in the next couple of weeks. So that's all that we've got. See everybody later.